The Middle East, a region perpetually on edge, has once again exploded into violence. This time, the stakes seem higher than ever, with the potential for widespread devastation looming large. Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group and political party based in Lebanon, has mobilized its forces, showcasing its military might and rallying its supporters. Meanwhile, Israel, the region's dominant military power, has responded with equal force, deploying its advanced military technology and highly trained soldiers in a bid to neutralize the threat. This latest escalation marks one of the most serious flare-ups between the two adversaries in years, with both sides suffering casualties and significant damage. The situation has raised fears of a wider regional conflagration, as neighboring countries watch nervously, aware that the conflict could easily spill over their borders. This conflict is not merely about rockets and airstrikes. It is a complex and multifaceted struggle. It is a clash of ideologies with deep-seated beliefs and historical grievances fueling the fire. It is also a struggle for regional dominance, with each side seeking to assert its influence and control over the Middle East. This conflict serves as a stark reminder of the volatile mix of religion, politics, and power that defines the Middle East, a region where ancient rivalries and modern ambitions collide. The international community watches with bated breath, hoping for a swift resolution while bracing for the potential consequences should diplomacy fail. Diplomatic efforts are underway, with world leaders and diplomats working tirelessly to broker a ceasefire and prevent further bloodshed. The roots of this conflict run deep, stretching back decades, with a history of violence and mistrust that has shaped the current landscape. However, the current crisis was sparked by a series of events that rapidly escalated tensions, including political provocations and military actions. To understand the gravity of the situation, one must first examine the factors that led to this dangerous precipice, including the historical context and the recent triggers. The following sections will delve into the intricate details of the conflict, providing a comprehensive analysis of the key events and players involved. We will explore the motivations of the key players, from political leaders to military strategists, and their roles in shaping the conflict. We will also examine the human cost of the violence, highlighting the suffering of civilians caught in the crossfire and the efforts to provide humanitarian aid. Finally, we will consider the potential scenarios that lie ahead, from continued conflict to possible paths to peace. The path forward remains treacherous, with many obstacles and uncertainties. But by understanding the complexities of this conflict, we can better grasp the stakes involved and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. The hope is that through dialogue and diplomacy, a lasting peace can be achieved, bringing stability to a region long plagued by turmoil. On November 24, 2024, the conflict erupted with a show of force, marking a significant escalation in the ongoing tensions between Hezbollah and Israel. Hezbollah unleashed a barrage of missiles targeting Israeli positions, a move that was both strategic and symbolic. Over 250 projectiles, a mix of short-range rockets and longer-range missiles, rained down on Israeli military installations and civilian areas, causing widespread panic and destruction. The scale of the attack, unprecedented in recent years, sent shockwaves through Israel, leaving both the government and civilians in a state of heightened alert. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for the attack, framing it as retaliation for Israeli airstrikes on their positions in Syria, which had intensified over the past months. They declared their actions a response to Israeli aggression and a defense of Lebanese sovereignty, emphasizing their role as protectors of Lebanon. The group's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, vowed to continue the fight if Israel retaliated, raising the specter of a full-blown war and further destabilizing the region. The missile barrage exposed the vulnerabilities of Israel's defense systems, highlighting the limitations of even the most advanced technology in the face of a determined adversary. While the Iron Dome, Israel's renowned missile defense system, intercepted a significant number of projectiles, some managed to penetrate, causing damage and casualties. Sirens wailed across northern Israel, sending residents scrambling for bomb shelters, a grim reminder of the ever-present threat of conflict. This brazen attack marked a significant escalation by Hezbollah, demonstrating their growing military capabilities and their willingness to directly challenge Israel, despite the risks involved. It served as a stark reminder of the potent threat Hezbollah poses to Israel's security and the volatile nature of the region, where any spark could ignite a larger conflagration. The international community reacted with concern, calling for restraint and urging both sides to de-escalate the situation to avoid further bloodshed. Amidst the chaos, humanitarian efforts began to provide relief to those affected, showcasing the resilience and solidarity of the people caught in the crossfire. Israel, vowing a forceful response, wasted no time in retaliating. Within hours of the initial missile barrage, Israeli warplanes roared into action, launching airstrikes against targets in southern Lebanon. The strikes focused on what Israel identified as Hezbollah strongholds, weapons depots, and command centers. The Israeli Defense Forces, or IDF, released footage of their operations, showcasing precision strikes on buildings and infrastructure they claimed were linked to Hezbollah. They emphasized their commitment to protecting Israeli citizens and deterring further attacks from Lebanese territory. However, the airstrikes were not without controversy. Reports emerged of civilian casualties and damage to residential areas, raising concerns about the proportionality of Israel's response. International organizations and human rights groups expressed alarm at the mounting civilian toll and urged restraint from both sides. Israel maintained that it was taking every precaution to minimize civilian casualties and accused Hezbollah of using civilians as human shields. They argued that their actions were justified self-defense against a terrorist organization operating from within Lebanon. As the fighting raged on, the human cost of the conflict became tragically apparent. The relentless violence and chaos left a trail of devastation that was impossible to ignore. On both sides of the border, innocent civilians bore the brunt of the violence. Families were torn from their homes, children were forced to grow up amidst the sounds of gunfire and explosions, and communities were shattered. Homes were reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and lives cut short. The destruction was not just physical but emotional, leaving scars that would last a lifetime. In Lebanon, the situation was particularly dire. The country, already struggling with numerous challenges, found itself at the epicenter of a new wave of violence. The country, already grappling with a crippling economic crisis and political instability, found itself thrust into the midst of another devastating conflict. The economic hardships were exacerbated, with markets running dry and political protests becoming more frequent. Hospitals struggled to cope with the influx of casualties, and essential supplies dwindled as the fighting disrupted supply chains. Medical staff worked around the clock, often without the necessary resources to treat the injured and save lives. The United Nations estimated that over 3,500 people, mostly Lebanese civilians, had been killed in the fighting, with many more injured. The numbers were staggering, each statistic representing a human life lost or forever altered. The displacement crisis was equally alarming, with over 1.2 million people forced to flee their homes in search of safety. Refugee camps swelled with desperate families, each seeking a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. Israel also counted its losses. The impact of the conflict was felt deeply, with communities mourning their dead and injured. While the Iron Dome system minimized casualties, some rockets managed to penetrate, killing and injuring civilians. The constant barrage of attacks left a nation on edge, with every siren signaling potential disaster. The constant threat of attack took a toll on the psychological well-being of Israelis living in the north, forcing them to live in a state of constant fear and uncertainty. Bomb shelters became a second home, and the mental strain was palpable. The human toll of the conflict served as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of violence and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. Peace protests emerged, with people from both sides calling for an end to the bloodshed. Behind the statistics were countless stories of loss, suffering, and displacement. Each individual had a story, a life disrupted by the conflict, and dreams shattered by the violence, painting a grim picture of the human cost of this enduring conflict. The images of war-torn areas and refugee camps highlighted the urgent need for humanitarian aid and a long-term solution to bring lasting peace to the region. Section 5. Seeking a fragile ceasefire. In this chapter we delve into the challenging efforts to establish a ceasefire, a task fraught with complexities and delicate negotiations. The pursuit of peace, while noble, often encounters numerous obstacles that must be carefully navigated. We explore the key players involved, their motivations, and the intricate dance of diplomacy required to bring about a temporary halt in hostilities. Join us as we uncover the fragile nature of ceasefires and the hope they represent amidst the turmoil. In this intricate game of geopolitics, every move counts. Nations act not just in their own interest, but often in reaction to the actions of others. Alliances shift, strategies evolve, and the balance of power is in constant flux. Understanding these dynamics is crucial to grasping the broader conflict. Amidst the chaos, there are countless stories yet to be told. Each voice adds a unique perspective, shedding light on the human impact of this conflict. From the displaced families to the soldiers on the front lines, their experiences offer invaluable insights into the realities on the ground. The path ahead is fraught with uncertainty. As we look to the future, it's clear that the decisions made today will shape the world for generations to come. Will diplomacy prevail, or will the cycle of conflict continue? Only time will tell, but the stakes have never been higher. At this critical juncture, the world stands at a crossroads. The choices made by leaders and citizens alike will determine the trajectory of this conflict. It's a moment of profound consequence, where the actions of a few can impact the lives of many. The road to peace is never easy, but it is a journey worth undertaking.